My name is Stephen Lane, and I'm here to show you guys a little bit of information on how to do local history research. The project that I was tasked to do is the People of Central Library in 1917, and this is for the Central Library Centennial Celebration for the Indianapolis Public Library System. There were a couple of avenues, or three to be exact, avenues that I used in order to make a successful research project on this topic. I went to digital sources, so things that were found online. I went to physical archives locally in the city, and I talked to my local librarians. Focusing on digital sources, there were a few that was able to find on my own. One being the Digital Indy site, which is through the Indianapolis Public Library. And I used the Digital Indy site to look at the architecture of Central Library. All of that information is posted online. The initial letters from the public to open a central library or build a Carnegie Central Library. And there's a lot of documentation on the pretty much the opening ceremony of Central Library, but there isn't a lot of information out there on the people who live within walking distance of the library. So that is what this research project is to do is designed to do is to uncover the people who lived around within walking distance of Central Library and would have used Central Library as their main branch. There's also IUPUI Digital Collection, which offers for free Sanborn and based maps for the public to access of Indianapolis. And that was very helpful for me in my research to find the addresses around Central Library at that time. I was then able to compare those addresses to the Polk County City Directory of Indianapolis in 1917, which is also found at the IUPUI Digital Collection, and put names to those addresses. So it's very exciting to be able to do that, find the names of the people who lived around Central Library in 1917. Another great resource is the State Library Digital Collection. They offer a lot of documents and photographs of Indianapolis at that time, as well as what was going on in the state of Indiana. The Indiana Historical Society Digital Collection offers the Bass Photo Collection, which is just a phenomenal collection in looking at the buildings and homes and structures that were around downtown Indianapolis at the time and that were around the Central Library in 1917 as well. Going to the physical archives, I can't stress this enough, is just instrumental in finding things that may not have been digitized yet. So I started with the Indianapolis Special Collections Room, which also has physical copies of the Sanborn and base maps of Indianapolis, as well as physical copies of the Polk County City Directory of Indianapolis in 1917, even going further back than that and going further ahead than that as well. The State Library Rare Books and Manuscripts Division is just a great resource, and I've used them before on a previous project on the history of Indianapolis waterways and things that were around the waterways. And all I did was send them an email of my research question, and they put together a lot of newspaper clippings and photographs that I could use for that project. The Indiana Historical Society Library, I haven't used it yet, but I know that it is a great resource to go into there and find um, plenty of information that you would need on your local history project, especially in Indianapolis. So definitely reach out to your local library, your public library, your state library, and your historical societies to see what kind of information they can offer you. The IUPUI University Library Archives is another one. So even reaching out to local universities in your area can be very helpful in doing local history research. Now, I will say that if you would want to publish any of that information, you have to see what kind of policies they have in publishing photographs or newspaper clippings, and you may have to pay a fee in order to do that. You may even have to pay a fee to make digital copies of your research as well. So I must say that tapping your librarians and getting their assistance in doing your local history is just a great idea. You may have skipped something that your local librarian can take a look at and like, oh, have you considered this or have you considered that? So one thing that you will have to go through with your librarian is the reference interview. So make sure that you have your research question fully formed. And my research question was, who lived around Central Library in 1917? So I could even say who lived within walking distance of Central Library in 1917. And then if you want to get a little fancy or creative or throw them an extra question, maybe did these people have library cards? So can we verify that they were actually patrons of Central Library in 1917? And this is something that I did ask the Indianapolis Special Collections Room specialist, and she found a box of old library records. So there might be a ledger somewhere from 1917 of the first people in Indianapolis that have library cards or however they documented their check-in and check-out of books through the library in 1917. So let's see how that goes. Some interesting finds. What did you find that was interesting? What were people doing 100 years ago? Or did any famous people live around Central Library at that time? So that's what I really want to find out. I did find that there was one, the mother of a ragtime performer. She lived pretty close on Meridian Street of Central Library. So interesting finds are definitely going to be the focus of this project since it's going to be an exhibit on the sixth floor of Central Library in celebration of the centennial of the people who lived around Indianapolis. So one thing that I really want to do for this project is set up the context. What was Indianapolis like 100 years ago? What were the big events nationally in 1917? Of course, you had World War One, which was going on in full swing. And what things were going on locally in Indianapolis in 1917? Well, you had the Ku Klux Klan was pretty popular in the state of Indiana, even in the state and the city of Indianapolis in 1917. And so one thing that's interesting that I can mention is that the librarian, Charles E. Rush of Central Library, we took an early stance to make sure that we had an integrated library system, that we made books and access to books and information open to everyone. And you can see that in the picture to the right that there is a diverse group of kids in the Riley Reading Room of Central Library almost 100 years ago. Another interesting person that I found was Mrs. Ralph Chester Lane, no relation to myself, who lived around the corner on Delaware Street. And the Indianapolis Star would publish articles on her lavish tea parties that she would throw in her apartment at that time. So that was what I was able to uncover so far in this investigation and this study. And using those three resources has been just very helpful in putting together the history of the people of the Central Library, around the Central Library in 1917, Indianapolis, Indiana. So in conclusion, it's very important to tap multiple resources. Definitely see what you can find out on your own at first before you go to a librarian. And then when you go to a librarian, make sure that you have your research question fully formed and that you let the librarian know what you've already found in your research, and they can probably help you expand on that research and give you a little more to work with. So I hope that this presentation was helpful in doing local history in your area, and please let me know your questions or ideas. My email is smlane@iupui.edu, and I would love to hear from you. Thank you. Have a great day.